Hello, welcome back. My name is Obeni and this is Tons of Us, and we're proceeding with Java from where we end up. And we end up in the concept of object-oriented programming, and we see the concept of object-oriented programming in depth, and we see how the concept of classes and polymorphism and abstraction and so much, how they work, the basic knowledge of that object-oriented programming. And we also see the concept of object-oriented programming in Java itself. So now we are ready to go. And we see that, just to remind you, we see that to create a class in Java, we start with keyword class and the name of that class and this pair of opening and closing curly brackets. And this will be the body of our class. And right here is where we put the members of this class. It can either be a method of this class, and also it can either be a property of this class. And we say methods are function of the class. That means they can be used to alter the value of a variable, and variable are just the properties of class. That means they can change. I mean, a function or a method can change the value of that property. And we see that the keyword public just means something, this something can be accessed everywhere. For example, this function here, we see that function must have a access modifier, for example a public access modifier. Don't worry about this static now, we're going to check it as we're moving. And so this public just means this method can be accessed outside of this class. And then the void, this keyword void, just means the return type of this function is nothing. That means this function just executes and doesn't return anything to you. And this is the main of, this is the name of a function. And right here is a parameter. That means we can use this one to pass values into our function. And we use these values to do some task that function have to do. And our function right now is just printing something to our terminal. So let's see if it's really working. Let's try it. Okay, right here we have this hello world, so we are good to go. Everything is fine. So in Java we have also variables as other programming language. And if you are beginner, totally you don't even know what programming language is, let me give you a clear understanding of variables. What does it mean? Variables are just templates, or are just holders. They hold data for a program. That means variable can be used to store, we use them to store data that we may use in our application. And variables, to create a variable, or a variable must have three points. That means I can say variable must have data type. That means what are you storing in that variable? Is it an integer, or is it a character, or is just a string? And then the name of that variable. That we can use this one to identify, we can use this to retrieve the value which we store into a variable, and the value of that variable. So in Java, data type can be integer, it can be string, it can be Boolean, it can be float, double, and long double. So let's see how to create a variable. Let's assume we want to create a variable of somebody's age. Let's say my age. So age is an integer, so we have to put int, a keyword int, that means integer, and the name of a variable, let's say age. And we assign value to this one. Let's say I'm 100 years old, and we put semicolon to terminate the statement. So let's try to print this one onto this console. And we say to print something on the console, we need to write system.out.println, and we put age. But see, we are getting an error here. What do you think is causing this error? It's because in Java all programs get executed within a main function. Look, we are outside of this function, we are inside a class. So for this program to actually work, we have to cut this one and put inside this main function. And let's for now delete this one. Just remove this one and just check it if we are getting 100 into terminal. And I'm going to use shortcut now. It's always better to use shortcut because they are pretty much simple and faster. So to run this one in shortcut, you just press shift F10 like that, and it's going to run. Oh yeah, we have 100 like this, you see, on the terminal. So we are good. Okay, now let's try, let me take this one to above this one here, and now let's create another type of variable. Let's say string. How to create a string? Let's say we start with data type, that's the string, and name of that type, let's say country, like that, and we assign the value. And for string we have to put this double quote, and at user we have to terminate using semicolon. So right here, country may be Tanzania, like that. And to print this one into the terminal, the same thing, we have to write system.out.what print line. You can put ln, that means after printing move to the next line. So we write country like that. And if you run this one, shift F10, you will see the result. So we are getting Tanzania and 100. So what I want you to take away from this one is that Java program are executed line by line. That's why you are seeing country Tanzania first after this statement of printing age to the console. That means this one get executed first and move to the next line and print age. So they executed line by line. So let's see it one more time. There we go. We have Tanzania, and move to the next line we have 100. So that's how to create variables in Java. You can also create another type of variable with different data type, and let's say how to create a Boolean data type. A Boolean data type can be either true or false. It only have two variables. It only have two values. So let's say color. I have to write bool like that. Boolean, not like that. And then you have to put the name of that variable, and let's say color, and assign a value to it. Let's say false, and let's check. Let's just print to console. Let's say system.out.println and color. What do you think is going to happen? Let's see. We get false because that's a value we assign to it. And we use these Boolean variables, or we use them to test something. Let's just show you something, even though this is a little bit far. Let's say if is color, and let's say s for you like that. This is a shortcut, and let's say color is true, else let's say SOT, and let's say color is true, is false. Don't worry about this one. We're going to say them as we're moving. These are just way of conditioning our program. It's conditional statement controlling the program. But now we're just testing. If color is true, then it's going to execute this part, and if it's not true, we're going to execute this one. Don't worry if you don't understand now. It's a little bit an advanced, so we're going to dive into as we're moving. Okay, let's try it. It says color is false. Why? It's because a Boolean variable is assigned to false. So it's going to check right here. If this one is true, it's going to execute this one. But it's found that color is false, so it's going to execute the next one and not the first one. It's going to execute this one. Color is false. I think you're getting my point. So let's delete this one and try to create another type of variable with different data type. Let's say float, like that, and we are assigning them as amount. Let's say money, and we are assigning it to something like this one point something like that. And you get an error right here. If you click right here, you'll see that it's asking you to cast into a float. So let's click this one. You'll see what does this means. That is way of converting, of telling that this one is a float number. Explicitly, it's just knowing this one is, we are assigning a float right here. I mean that this, the data type is float, but explicitly this looks like an integer, right? So we are explicitly telling that, or we are forcing our compiler that this is a float number. So if let's try to system to print it to the console. So what you need to write here is, as usual, we have to system.out.println and then money, like that, and shift F10. You will see, oh, we're going to get error because I forget to put semicolon. So let's repeat it again. There we go. See? So this is a way of casting, changing something. Casting means changing a data from one data type to another data type. Let me explain this to you with example. Assume we have this one integer age. This is an integer, right? We want to cast this one to float. So how to do something like this? We put opening and a closing curly bracket before the value itself, and we pass as what? We put float, and you see we are getting an error. It's asking us to cast into an integer. It's because at before right here we have integer, so we have to put integer inside this one. See? And now it's working fine. So this is way of casting, of changing, of forcing compiler to be happy that this one is really an integer. The same thing right here. You can cast this one to a string, so we have to pass string, and it's happy. See that? So that's okay. And now let's see how to create a double. We have to put double, and this is also a float, but the difference is that double is taking much number of decimals. So let's see. Double, we're going to say something like amount is equal to, is equal to something like 1.00001 to whatever, like that. And if we want to print it, I mean, we have to write system, but let me show you the shortcut of this one. You have to write SOUT and just press enter if you're using IntelliJ, and this is very quite handy. It's help to save time. So amount, like that, and shift F10. Let's see how it's going to work. Okay, that's perfectly fine. We can also cast this one into double. See, that's pretty much stayed simple, right? Let's try to do something right here. Float. It's also working fine. So maybe asking how now this one. We have seen that to cast this float, we have to put float right here, and integer the same, string the same. Maybe asking, can we put integer right here? Is that possible? It's not. See? Have to turn it back to string, but look right here, double and float. So maybe asking what's going on here. It's because this is also a decimal data type, and this is decimal data type. The only difference is that this one is taking small number of decimals and this one is taking large number of decimals. So compiler is happy with this one. Let's try to print it if it's correct. Good. See that? So it's perfectly working fine. And if you see something right here, you can see there are some changes, a little bit changes right here, because this one ends with 3 and this one extend more about that one. You can see. So in case of computer, we have something called double precision and single precision. This one is increasing the value to make this one more precise rather than this one. I think you're getting my point, okay? Okay, so this is how to create data types in Java. So let's try to create something interesting a little bit after understanding after understanding these data types. But before that, I want to give you a task so you can get used to this one. Just simply try to create a simple calculator that will add numbers. Example, I want to create a program such that 10 plus 10 is equal to 20. I'll come back later. Okay, now let's see arithmetic calculation in Java, how to add numbers, and we are going to solve our problem. So as usual, let's say declare a variable, call it integer, and call it number 1, and then assign value to it. Let's say 10. One thing to keep in mind is that to create name of variable cannot start with number. You cannot put number right here. It will give you an error. But you can put number in between a string or even at the end of a string, like that one. This is totally fine. So you can put number 1, and then let's create another thing right here and say number 2, and we assign it to something like this one again. And then to add this one, we say int and say answer is equal to number 1 plus, oh sorry, I have to put plus arithmetic number 2, and terminate using semicolon. And then to print this one onto the terminal, we write SOUT as usual. That's a shortcut, SOUT, and so like that, and Shift F10. What you're going to see here is 20. See, pretty much simple. Java is simple. Okay, so we have 10 plus 10 is equal to 20. That's perfectly fine. So let's try multiplication. We put symbol like this one to multiply, a star symbol. Let's see if it's working fine. We're going to see 100. Perfect. And let's put minus. We're going to see 0, right? Let's see if that's true. Good. And let's finally test division. So we're going to get 1. Okay, perfect. So that's arithmetic calculation in Java. Okay, now let's move on. Now we have seen how to do some arithmetic calculation in Java. Okay, now you may be curious to know, how are we going to get inputs from terminal? Maybe asking about that. Okay, so let's see how to get inputs from terminal and do some calculation or do some task with that input you get from that. So to get input from terminal, we use a built-in library like this one. We have something called system. We use built-in library called scanner. All right, so we have to import scanner at the above of this one. That means this library is built in Java, so in order to use it, we import it. So in IntelliJ, you just need to write scanner and put it a name, and see, it's giving you a recommendation. Is us saying that you have to press Alt and Enter. So press it, Alt and Enter. You have to find that on your keyboard, and once you press that Alt and Enter, you see we are importing this one. Import Java, and it is inside a package called Java, and inside this one we have a package named as utility, and inside that package we have a class of scanner utility. So it's inside a package named java.util, and inside this one, the package, we have a class named scanner. So we are creating a scanner. Remember how to create an object. This is a class, so we say class is a blueprint of an object, so we have to create an object here. So we put equals to new what? Scanner, and we put something like this one, and look, is giving us an error. If you see right here, this one, it's having is requiring variables, requiring data. So right here we have to put system.in. What this is, let me show you why are we passing this system.in as value to this scanner class. If you are using this IntelliJ editor, you have to press Control and hover over this scanner and then click it. It will direct you to where the scanner is. You can see it's a method, right? We have method, here of course a method and named as scanner, and it's taking this input source. So what this one is not is a constructor, okay? The constructor of this class. Don't worry about constructor, we're going to understand as we are moving. It's just a little bit far from this one. So remember, this is just a constructor. Constructor, in other terms, we say is a function that is immediately invoked after instantiation of a class, after creating a class. So this is a constructor, and this one is taking a variable named input stream as a source, and data type of input stream, and the name is source. So let's close this one first, and we have to pass this system.in into this one, and that means we are passing this value into the constructor function of this class input, of this class scanner. So now we are ready to go. So for example, we wanna get a data type of integer from terminal, and we want to store it into a variable called age. Okay, so we have to put int and age is equal to, we use cs, right? That one we created above, and remember we use dot operator to get the members of this class. Okay, so we want to get an integer, so we write next int like that one. And now if we want to print this one onto the console, we use SOUT as usual, and then age. So let's try to run this one. So you see, it's waiting for us to write something into the terminal. So let's write 100, okay? And let's press enter. And see, we are writing 100, and right after pressing enter, it's giving us back 100. This is why, because we are initiating our scanner class, and we're getting input and then printing it back to the console. I think you're getting my point, okay? So that's it. So we also have something called concatenation of something. For example, let's take a look of concatenation of a string. I'm going to show you that. Let's say I have a string of f name, right, is equal to Ombeni, like that one. I'm sorry, let's have the Ombeni, and also string and hello name is equal to Tango. See, and then I want to combine these two words together to produce a full name. So I have, say, string, right, and say full name is equal to f name plus l name. Okay, so that's concatenation of string. That means we are concatenating, we are combining this and this one. Okay, so let's say SOUT and then full name and shift F10. What are we going to see? We're going to see Ombeni Tango. See, but there's no space, right? So to put some space, we can use it by putting space right here and run it again. All right, we see there is a space. Good. So this is how to combine, how to concatenate a string. What I want you to take here is that string is also something called an array, but we're going to see array as we're moving. This is kind of advanced topic, right? So we're going to see it, but I want you to understand that string is an array. Okay, so let's now use the knowledge of concatenation to concatenate it with our variable, with our value we get from this age. So for For example, we want to say your age is 100, okay? So we have to put something like this and put plus symbol. And here we say your age is plus age that we inputted there, okay? So let's write Shift F10. Okay, it's waiting for us to write something, and let's say 100, and it's going to say your age is 100. Awesome, right? So we can even modify it much more, and looks simple and easy to use with some instruction. So we write SOUT right here and say, kind of like a guidance to user, right? Enter your age. Okay, so, and let's Shift F10, see what's going to happen. Okay, was previously asking. I thought it should. All right, sorry, I have to put this one above. Sorry, remember we say Java program executed line by line, and this one should be now beneath this one. Okay, so that's perfect fine, because previously we are first initiating a scanner class, and we are inputting, we're getting value, and then we print all this one after getting value. But we have to show this one before even moving to this class. Okay, now let's test it. See, it's asking us to enter age. So write your age right here, and you see I want you to put some space, not very closer to this string right here. So let's cancel it first and do some modification. Let's press space and rerun your program again. Okay, so let's see, it's going to be here. Okay, let's write. Okay, so let me write my age and say 100. Okay, and it's going to say your age is 100. See, awesome, right? Good. So this is how to concatenate string and age. Now I want to give you a task to create a simple calculator that will take inputs from keyboard and add those values, and providing an answer to the screen by saying your answer is something, like that, and pause the video and test it yourself. I'll be back soon. Alright, welcome back. How did it go? Did you try to create your own calculator? If yes, that's perfectly fine. But let's see how to do something like that. So the first thing is to import our scanner class in order to get inputs from keyboard. Okay, so to do something like that, we can just manually type right here. We can say import, right? Import java.util.scan. See, but that's not the case, because if you're using this in IntelliJ editor, it's going to help you to import all those stuffs automatically. So what you need to know is just the name of that class. Okay, so our class name is scanner, and we put s and say equals to new scanner, right? And inside this parentheses we have to pass a value to construct a function of this class, and we have to put system.in and end it with semicolon. So, but before this one, we have to give the message and say SOUT like that, and say enter the first number, right? And then we're going to receive that number. Okay, I'm going to store it inside a f number, and this f number is equal to s that one, and dot, use dot operator to get what, to access the members of a class. So we say cs dot next int like that. Perfect. And then we give them another message and say SOUT and say enter a second number, right? Perfect. And then we're going to receive also and put it inside the S number, right? And this one is equal to cs dot next what? Next int. Perfect. And then at the end we have to create another variable for answer, and this answer is equal to f number plus s what? Number, right? And then at the end we have to print our value, okay? And this is answer. So let's test it. So it's asking us to write the first number, let's say 100, right? And press enter. And then it's asking again to enter a second number, let's say 200, and press enter, and it's going to print out. That means 100 plus 100 is 100 plus 200 is going to be 300, right? So we can even concatenate as we did previously and say your answer is something like that, and press, and let's run it again and see how it's going to behave. I'm going to put 1 plus 1, it's going to give us your answer is 2. Perfect, right? So that's how to get integer from a keyboard. But wait a bit, maybe asking how to get even a string now. Let's say we're going to create a program that will ask a user to ask them to write their name in, just like a story, write your name, write your age, and it's going to say your name is blah 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 blah, and you are something like years old and stuff like that. So how can we get strings from input? Strings from keyboard. The procedure is same, okay? All we need is scanner class. To put scanner, and S is, remember that is capital letter, and then is equal to new scanner and system dot what in, and then we're going now to receive a string. So we have to store it inside a string variable and say name is equal to sc dot next what? Next string, not integer now. We dot next, so it's next line, sorry, it's next line, I think so. So like that is not, so we have to say string dot, and we use dot operator and then next line. That's how to get string. Now let's print it, SOUT, and say name. Say we can concatenate even and put plus right here and say your name is, like that, and shift F10. Sorry, I did the same mistake as before. We have to put this one, we can put something like SOUT above this one and say enter your name, right? And rerun it again. This is what it's going to see, and enter your name. So I'm going to say my name is Ombeni Tango. See, it's going to print your name is Ombeni Tango. That's perfect. So this is how to get a string in Java. Okay, you have to put scn, that's our scanner class, and use dot operator, and to get a string we use next line. Okay, now we have seen how to get a string, and we've seen how to get also an integer, but how to get float? Okay, so let's see how to do that. We say dot next. Can we say next float? Yes, of course we can, but we have to change data type. See, this one should be a float. I think you're getting my point, right? And say amount, I can say, if you can say money, use that, and we can pass that here and say money. So let's run it again, and let's test something insane right here. Let's put something like an integer, not a float number. What's going to happen, you see, is going to say your name is this one. I'm sorry, this is not a name, so let me change this one and say you entered what? entered this one, so we write again. It's still asking your name, so I forget to change also this one, so you can enter a float. Enter and float. So let's rerun it again. So enter a float, and let's try to put 10 here. It's going to say you entered 10 point, but I didn't even write 10 point right here. So you'll be asking, where does this point come from? It's because of float. Remember, float is a decimal data type, right? So it's appending dot something at the end of that number. And so now let's try to put a float number itself, I mean a decimal number. Okay, so we're gonna put something like 10.22, and it's going to print it onto the console. Okay, that's perfectly fine. So let's see how to get a double, right? So double, I'm using next float. I think there is next double, maybe. Do we have something like that? Of course we have it. So let's run it again. And double, whatever I mean you're getting, this is should be in the double, but so I'm gonna leave it as it is and put 10. The same thing. So only the difference between float and double is that the number of decimal, the decimal number, right? That's the point I want you to take it away. So to get string we use next line, to get integer we use next int, float next float, and double we use next what? Next double. So that's it. Now let's create our program, a program that will ask a user to write his name, enter a name, right? And then after entering that name, we're going to store inside a string called name, and this is equal to s dot next line, like that, and we're going to store in that name string. And then again we're going to pass the user SOUT, and say enter your age, and then we're going to store it inside an integer and say age is equal to c dot next int, right? And then at the end we're gonna say SOUT and say you say your name is, we're gonna concatenate it with what? Name, right? And plus another concatenation, and say, put some space and say, and your age is, I'm gonna concatenate it with what? With age. So I think that's perfectly fine. Okay, so let's run, and it's going to work. Enter your name. So my name is Ombeni Tango, and press enter. It's going to ask me enter your age, or I'm 100 years old. So, and then it's going to say your name is Ombeni and your age is 100. So I forget to put some space here, right here. So test it one more time, Ombeni Tango, and enter 100 years old, and perfect. See, pretty much simple and easy. So this is how to create variables and use variables in Java. So thank you very much. See you in the coming lesson.